And this thing is getting even more bizarre. One of the key allegations in her complaint against Justin Baldoni, she writes, on another occasion, Mr. Baldoni and Ms. Lively were filming a slow dance scene for a montage in which Mr. Baldoni chose to let the camera roll and have them perform the scene, but did not act in character as Ryle. At one point, he leaned forward and slowly dragged his lips and down her neck. Mr. Baldoni was caressing Ms. Lively with his mouth. When Ms. Lively later objected to this behavior, Mr. Baldoni's response was, "I'm not even attracted to you." Well, guess what? And you can hear Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni interacting as themselves. No such moment is shown. They're acting like lovers.
And my nose is so big.
Yes. That's her big harassment moment. They are playfully acting. She's completely flirtatious with him. He is flirtatious back, but they're talking about their spouses. She doesn't say, "Oh my God, you nuzzled me and said that I smell good." She, like, time and time again, she accuses him of doing something, which then when you hear the full context, she said, he came in my trailer while I was breastfeeding. Well, then he produced the text messages showing her saying, "I'm breastfeeding, come on over." She accused his producing partner of showing her pornography, absolutely non-pornographic. Can't see any body parts. You can just see that two people clearly are in a bathtub holding their baby. You tell me whether that's what that looks like to you. She wants us to believe this is actionable harassment, what we just witnessed there, where she filed her lawsuit against him, saying this is all retaliatory and asking the court to shut him and Brian Friedman up because they're trying to try this case in the media. The only reason this whole thing got started before she filed the lawsuit, she clearly cooperated with the New York Times to leak the whole thing. Indeed, that's, Brian argues, the reason she went and filed the complaint with the Human Rights Division. She alleges that she's a Me Too victim there. That's absurd. I will happily participate in releasing any further leaks that they have. What does she have to fear if she's telling the truth?
Is Blake Lively's surprising battle with Justin Bond on the verge of derailing the fight against real abuse? In recent weeks, a storm of accusations, leaked messages, and controversial interviews has thrust these two popular celebrities into an intense spotlight. First glance, this might seem like just another Hollywood feud, an actress squabbling with her director and co-star, or a pair of personalities clashing over creative differences. But beneath the surface, something far more troubling is happening, and it could ripple beyond the gossip columns. Media figure Megyn Kelly has stepped forward to highlight this exact danger. Blake's allegations against Justin turn out to be exaggerated or manipulated, real survivors could face greater skepticism. Before diving into the actual accusations, let's examine why Megyn Kelly and so many others believe this feud extends well beyond celebrity gossip and has the potential to stain genuine efforts against misconduct. Megyn Kelly has never been one to shy away from controversial topics, and she hasn't held back on the Blake versus Justin situation. From her perspective, whenever a high-profile case includes accusations that later appear to be embellished or taken out of context, it can undercut the experiences of real victims. While Blake Lively insists she was uncomfortable, manipulated, or even bullied in certain instances, the evidence emerging from Justin Bond's legal team seems to tell a very different story, one that might make people question her motives. Kelly's fear is straightforward. If a megastar uses allegations as leverage, be it for career advantage, personal gain, or damage control, it creates a ripple effect that spreads into everyday life. Countless women who've suffered genuine trauma might feel disbelieved or invalidated when yet another celebrity's claims turn out to be inconsistent. This is more than a scandal about an actress possibly wanting control over a film. It's about how easily a public narrative can overshadow authentic stories of harassment. Blake's claims end up looking contrived. Observers might wonder whether all high-profile allegations are similarly blown out of proportion. That's exactly the perception Kelly is fighting against. Regardless of how you feel about either celebrity, it's crucial to understand that false narratives, if indeed false, do real harm to real survivors in a way that can't be fixed simply by a new round of headlines. With Megyn Kelly's warning echoing in the background, we turn to a tactic that's become all too common in major Hollywood disputes: the gag order. According to multiple reports, Blake Lively's team allegedly asked the court to issue a broad order preventing Justin Bond, his lawyers, and perhaps even Kelly's camp from sharing more text messages, emails, and recorded footage that could undermine Blake's allegations. In essence, after a barrage of negative press and a series of contradictory leaks, Blake might be hoping the legal system can help her retain control of a crumbling narrative. Justin Bond, however, seems determined not to stay silent. Sources indicate he's pushing back hard on this proposed gag order, insisting that he has every right to release evidence defending his reputation. To this point, those text messages and behind-the-scenes footage have painted a drastically different story from Blake's official statements. Her lawsuit and public assertions claimed Justin repeatedly crossed boundaries, invaded her personal space, and pressured her in ways she found uncomfortable. Yet numerous messages appeared to show Blake inviting him to her trailer, even during private moments, as if she were the one controlling how accessible she wanted to be. So far, Justin has made it clear he's not backing down, especially if he feels the public has only been given bits and pieces of the bigger puzzle. Blake Lively has often been known for her polished image, but that image started to wear off as fans revisited various clips of her past interactions. Some watchers complained that she often came off as condescending in interviews, rolling her eyes at certain questions, cutting the interviewer off, or pivoting the discussion to highlight her own achievements or projects. Others noticed how she had a habit of making dismissive remarks about colleagues, as if trying to downplay their contributions while emphasizing her own. This shift in public perception hit a tipping point once major news outlets started covering the story beyond just standard gossip sites. More people began investigating Blake's interviews, re-listening to her statements, and calling out inconsistencies. The more they looked, the more they found reasons to think her claims might not line up with reality. That was the moment it truly dawned on everyone that this was no small spat. It was a full-scale PR war that threatened to erode faith in all parties involved and potentially overshadow actual abuse cases that deserved attention. From the moment Justin Bond's camp began releasing text messages, skepticism around Blake's allegations intensified. These messages were especially revealing because they came straight from Blake's own phone. In one particular thread, she was the one initiating contact, inviting Justin into her private space, and showing a willingness to interact intimately with him for professional reasons, such as rehearsing lines or discussing character development. This apparent openness made it harder to believe that Justin was the relentless boundary crosser she depicted in her lawsuit. Leaked footage of slow dance scenes, which Blake labeled as uncomfortable or violating, also undermined her stance. The original recordings included audio, even though Blake had insisted there was none. In those recordings, both she and Justin appeared to be chatting light-heartedly about spouses and random daily life, while their microphones picked up every word. Certain points, it sounded more like two colleagues casually killing time between takes than any predatory situation. Critics of Blake argue that what she called evidence of misconduct is actually quite ordinary and that she may be taking lines or gestures out of context to fortify her lawsuit. These contradictions weren't enough. Other rumors have painted a picture of Blake trying to seize control of the film and overshadow the original vision. For example, insiders claim she produced her own edit of the movie without Justin's involvement, something typically unheard of for a lead actor. Even if a star has a lot of clout, it's unusual for them to lock themselves in a separate post-production room and work on a competing cut. Yet that's precisely the story swirling among insiders, citing memos and messages where Blake is said to have threatened not to promote the film unless her version was the one used. One alleged detail raises even bigger eyebrows: that Ryan Reynolds, Blake's husband, wrote or revised certain scenes without consulting Justin. While it's not uncommon for spouses of actors to informally suggest lines or comedic beats, doing so without the knowledge of the film's official director or writer breaks standard protocol. Suggests that Blake felt she had enough influence to bring her inner circle into the creative process, possibly sidelining Justin's authority. It's also said that Blake's best friend, Taylor Swift, was used as a form of intimidation. According to some messages, Blake even compared herself to a powerful character in a fantasy series, calling Ryan and Taylor her dragons and boasting that they could defend her publicly if needed. To top it off, Justin was apparently not allowed to appear alongside the cast at the film's premiere. He later recounted how he was practically banished to the basement with his own family, effectively blocked from taking part in the event. For a creative mind who had invested so much into writing, directing, and acting in the project, that must have felt like a calculated attempt to push him out of the limelight. Rather than being part of the big celebration, he was relegated to the sidelines, watching from afar as Blake enjoyed center stage. Those critical of Blake say this is evidence of a grand scheme, painting Justin as a monster so she could swoop in, claim the moral high ground, and perhaps wrest creative credit from him. If she convinced the public and the courts that she was mistreated, it might justify her making her own decisions, pushing her own cut, and overshadowing the entire production. Of course, that's still speculation, but the more leaked messages appear, the more people are calling these maneuvers a meticulously orchestrated power play. In the end, this saga involving Blake Lively and Justin Bond remains far from settled. Court proceedings and potential gag orders will likely shape what we can learn in the coming weeks. There could be further text messages, hidden documents, or behind-the-scenes accounts that either reinforce or dismantle Blake's claims. Already, the public's perception has shifted drastically as new pieces of the puzzle surface, but we may still be missing critical perspectives that could shed a fresh light on what truly happened. What stands out most is how this dispute has gradually become about more than two celebrities clashing over a movie production. It has transformed into a cautionary tale about how allegations, particularly in the realm of misconduct, must be carefully scrutinized. Every new revelation begs the question of whether Blake's claims are genuine or if she was trying to protect her image and career by painting herself as a victim. Meanwhile, Justin's reputation hangs in the balance, and he's left with the burden of proving his innocence in the court of public opinion, an arena that can be both unforgiving and unfair. If there's one point that resonates beyond the celebrity swirl, it's Megyn Kelly's warning. False or exaggerated stories can do real damage to women who desperately need society's belief and support. Whenever a high-profile figure's narrative collapses under contradictory evidence, the public becomes more suspicious of future claims, even those backed by solid proof. That skepticism is a painful cost paid by actual survivors, who see their own experiences questioned because of someone else's questionable allegations. So where do we go from here? As viewers, we can keep an open mind, acknowledging the difference between real misconduct and possibly overblown publicity stunts. We can demand evidence instead of taking every sensationalized headline at face value. And we can remember that, behind all the glitz and glamour, celebrities are still people, capable of mistakes, manipulations, and self-serving tactics. Ultimately, it's up to each of us to sift through the chaos, form our own conclusions, and stay vigilant so that true victims are heard and validated, rather than being lumped together with those who might be rewriting reality for their own benefit. If you've reached this point in the story, ask yourself, do Blake's accusations reflect a genuine experience of abuse or a strategic maneuver gone awry? Is Justin truly at fault, or is he yet another figure in Hollywood forced to defend himself in a heavily polarized environment? We may not have all the answers right now, but one thing is clear. In a clash fueled by powerful players, it's often the real survivors who risk being left behind. And that is a reality none of us should ignore.